Well, guys, as most of you obviously know, there is a lot going on in the world right now. But luckily for us, we have Karoline Leavitt, baby. And Karoline Leavitt is here to quell your fears. She's here to reduce some of that anxiety that you've been feeling. And she wants to let everybody know that Donald Trump is thinking through these very tense situations very, very methodically. And she wants everybody to be assured that Donald Trump is a very serious person, that he's working on behalf of the American people, and most of all, everybody should trust Donald Trump to guide us through these very precarious times. Now, obviously, that is the world that I wish we lived in. With all this chaos going on in the Middle East right now, many are wondering whether or not the United States is going to join in on that conflict and commit 100%. And even though we haven't seen Karoline Leavitt in maybe a week or so, she did make an appearance to answer some of these questions. And boy, oh boy, she did not disappoint. Here she is making the announcement that Donald Trump has made a decision on whether or not we will strike Iran. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Now, regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks." That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
I mean, you can't even make this stuff up. Like, this is beyond parody at this point. Donald Trump has been promising 2 weeks and 2 weeks and 2 weeks and 2 weeks since he came onto the political scene back in 2015. I mean, weren't we supposed to get this robust health plan that was going to replace Obamacare just 2 weeks ago, guys? I mean, I just couldn't believe my eyes and ears when she said this. Like, it's beyond parody. You can't even make it up. Like, you couldn't even write something this good, where you've got the press secretary coming out in front of the world and saying, "Don't worry, everybody, the president has made a decision that he will make a decision in 2 weeks." Now, how much do you guys want to bet that that deadline is going to continue to get pushed down the line? It seems like that's Trump's MO, seems like something we should expect, or it could go the complete opposite way, and Donald Trump will just start striking Iran tomorrow or maybe next week, and everybody will be left scratching their head as to where any of this came from. And then she's asked, well, what about the MAGA base that is, voting for Donald Trump because he said he didn't want any more wars? This seems pretty contrary to the promises that he made to those MAGA voters. Here's what Karoline Leavitt had to say.
Big names, but everyday Trump supporters, grassroots who voted for President Trump to stop the wars, rejected this in the primary, going into another war with voting against Nikki Haley, and they want to see non-U.S. involvement in this war. What's your message?
Trust in President Trump. President Trump has incredible instincts, and President Trump kept America and the world safe in his first term as president in implementing a peace through strength foreign policy agenda. And
we just got to trust Trump, guys. We just got to trust Trump, because we know that Donald Trump, our commander-in-chief, he's thinking through these things in a very, very serious way. He's got a very principled stance on how to negotiate conflict or work his way through thought processes that involve conflict. We know that Donald Trump is taking these matters very, very seriously, and that we just need to trust him. Does MAGA buy this shit? I mean, the question was very clear, right? Donald Trump ran on being the no wars president, and now there are active discussions about whether there should be regime change in Iran, which is completely contrary to Donald Trump's message. So instead of answering that question, she says, we just need to trust Trump, baby. He's our commander-in-chief. He's our leader. He's our dear leader. He's our daddy. So just trust him to make the right decision. Now, you'll notice when she came out and said that there will be a decision in 2 weeks, And she based that around the idea that there is a substantial understanding or reasonable expectation that there will be negotiations between Donald Trump and Iran. So somebody asks, well, is that the case? And how do we know that that is the case? Here's what she said to that.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, he will make that decision within the next 2 weeks.
So she just repeats herself. Well, why do we have to wait 2 weeks for him to make a decision? You said there's going to be some reasonable expectation that there are negotiations that are going to happen between the commander-in-chief and Iran. Do we have any details as to how we know that? Why does Donald Trump think that there are, reasonable expectations that we can have negotiations? Especially when Iran is basically calling Donald Trump's bluff, saying, nobody reached out to Donald Trump or his administration. We're not interested in negotiations right now. That is what we are hearing from the other side. Now, I don't know exactly what the truth is at this point, but it seems pretty flimsy to me that Karoline Leavitt is unable to answer that question. Now, the next question is actually pretty funny because somebody calls Karoline Leavitt out on this whole 2 weeks promise that Donald Trump has been making for years now.
President Trump has said previously in regard to Russia, he's used this phrase about 2 weeks several times in terms of we expect a 2 week deadline and then you give another 2 week deadline. How can we be sure that he's going to stick to this one on making a decision on Iran?
Well, in those deadlines, as you've seen in respect to Russia, Ukraine, might I add, these are two very different, complicated global conflicts, as you know, that the president inherited from our previous incompetent president in the weakness of the previous administration. And the president has spent a tremendous amount of time and effort cleaning up these crises that were caused by the last administration's just complete dereliction of duty on the world stage and American weakness. Now,
what? She was asked about, well, Donald Trump has been making this 2 weeks promise for years now. He says 2 weeks about this, he says 2 weeks about that, and then he never follows through. How can we be sure this time, when it comes to striking Iran, that we will actually have a decision in 2 weeks? And what does Karoline Leavitt do? Oh, this is the part in the press conference where we've got to blame Biden because everybody get your bingo card out. This is what we have to do when we're talking about a press conference in the name of Donald Trump. This is what they do all of the time. If they don't have a good answer, they'll just turn around and look at the past. They'll blame the previous administration and how incompetent they were, how it was a dereliction of their duty to do this and to do that. It's all Biden's fault, baby. You can't blame Donald Trump because Biden's weakness on the world stage is what provoked this conflict in the first place. So please take your 2 week promises and just keep it to yourself for now. I don't really want to answer that question. Pretty insane, guys. Pretty insane stuff. Then she's asked about whether or not Donald Trump would seek congressional approval if he did want to engage in war with Iran, which is what our Constitution sets out. Our Congress needs to approve a new war if that is the route we are going to take. And as everybody knows, Donald Trump is not interested in getting approval through Congress. He's trying every workaround in the book for everything else that he's doing in his administration. So this is a very good question.
And then if the U.S. were to take some type of military action, would the president go to Congress to seek war authority?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. I gave you the statement from the president. He'll make a decision within 2 weeks.
It's just another 2 weeks, guys. We're getting another 2 weeks promise. And I'm really sick and tired of hearing this administration or anybody on the right for that matter. Oh, well, I don't engage in hypotheticals. I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer because we just don't do hypotheticals here. The presidency, you make decisions based on hypotheticals, right? I mean, you are given, plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D. You've got variable C and D and A and G. These are all hypothetical scenarios. And you take all the information you have based on those hypothetical scenarios and you try to come to the best decision possible. So when you've got the press secretary standing at the White House or the press briefing room here and saying, I don't really want to engage in hypotheticals, when all that was asked, whether or not Donald Trump would go to Congress to seek approval, it's quite terrifying. It's just a way to kind of skirt around the answer. They don't want to come out and say, well, no, he's not going to go to Congress. That's not, Donald Trump is our king, baby. He's going to do whatever he wants to do, but they really can't say that. So instead, we don't engage in hypotheticals here, guys. It's not something that we do. I'm not even going to answer that question because I don't like hypotheticals. It's pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Let's go to move on to this last clip, guys. Karoline Leavitt says we need to trust Donald Trump, right? And we need to trust him because he is so good at making decisions based on his instincts. Okay?
Thank you. To what extent is this 2-week delay with Iran the result of interventions by the likes of Tucker Carlson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, or the entreaties of European leaders who want a de-escalation?
Look, the president hears all voices across the country, and he makes decisions based on his instincts. And he has always said diplomacy is his first option.
Is that terrifying to anybody else? Because that terrifies the shit out of me. I don't think Donald Trump has very good instincts at all. He has terrible instincts, as a matter of fact. He decides he wants to ignore the Supreme Court. He goes ahead and he ignores the Supreme Court. He decides to start impounding funds based on his instinct, even though it is blatantly against the law. Well, he goes ahead and he impounds funds, just bypassing Congress altogether. Even with congressionally approved aid, we're just going to shut that funding down based on Donald Trump's instincts. It's terrifying. You know, we should be working with our allies. We should be working with our diplomatic partners. Donald Trump and Iran were supposedly in some talks about some nuclear deal 2.0, which is just wild. But now that timeline is up, now Israel is striking Iran, and now the United States is trying to get involved because Donald Trump wants to be on the winning team, is what it seems like to me. It's all just a mess, and I don't really trust that Donald Trump has great instincts, especially when it comes to military force. Donald Trump has he knows nothing about war. He knows nothing about the military. He just doesn't know anything about what makes our country and our military great. So I really just don't trust that he's going to have the greatest instincts around this issue. And that's just the last point I want to make here. It is really, I don't know what is the right word. It's not shocking. It is just absolutely insane to me that Donald Trump in his first term shredded up the Iran deal, the nuclear deal, because it was negotiated by Obama. This was a plan that was working, right? And it was third-party mediators who were doing the work. It's not like Iran was hiding stuff, or it's not like the United States wasn't able to see. I mean, it was a third party conducting the inspections to make sure that the nuclear deal was being adhered to. And Donald Trump came in and he ripped that deal up. So not only did you lose all credibility in the United States, but now you're using this whole idea of, well, Iran can't have a nuclear bomb. Of course, we're gonna have to intervene. We're gonna have to use our military might because we can't let them have a nuke. All of this could have been avoided. This very rationale could have been avoided. But because Donald Trump is such a petulant man-child, because he didn't want to, have Obama's name on anything, and he wanted to shred everything up that Obama touched, that nuclear deal just went by the wayside. And now we are facing down another conflict in the Middle East because Donald Trump just couldn't let that deal be, couldn't just let it stand on its own and just go about his business. Because he is a petulant man baby. He doesn't want anybody else to have credit for anything. And now we have to count on him having good instincts as to whether or not the United States of America is going to get involved in another war in the Middle East. So, just food for thought for you guys on that one. Anyway, we will be keeping a close eye on this, obviously. There's a lot of speculation as to whether or not we are going to get involved. I have not done a whole bunch of research on whether or not Iran was close to a nuclear bomb or whatever. I'm not super versed in this foreign policy stuff, which is kind of why I kept my analysis to the press briefing itself and Donald Trump's decision making and that kind of thing. We might jump into the foreign policy of it all at a later date, but I just wanted to show this to you here. We got another 2 weeks, and then hopefully, guys, we'll have a decision on whether or not we're going to start launching missiles at Iran. So I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We are trying to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against the right-wing media ecosystem that just launders Donald Trump shit every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. Of course, that is free. And if you guys want to see how Donald Trump left the G7 early for no apparent reason, and then made excuses for it later in a wild press conference, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.